Negative space. Negative space, it's the area outside of the positive space. It's the shape of the space in which the subject is placed. The outer edges and the space beyond the edges extended outward. Negative space. Negative space out beyond the outer edges of the positive shapes. Here's Edgar Rubin's famous picture of a two-faced face. A time when nothing might say something, it's the negative space. Negative space. Negative space, it's the area outside of the shapes you can make. It's the shape of the space in which the subject is placed. The outer edges and the space beyond the edges extended outward. Negative space. Let's talk about that. This time on Paint by Monster. Hello everyone and welcome to Paint by Monster with me, your host, Easel Monster. An artist using negative space relies on the space that surrounds the subject to provide shape and meaning. Of course, the term also refers to any topic that conjures feelings of unease and discomfort, says artist Noma Bar in his 2009 book, Negative Space. He's an Israeli illustrator and this is some of his work. Isn't he wonderful? He specializes in using negative space. His artworks are so simple and yet so sophisticated, you just can't help but to love him. Boom, chicka, boom, boom. All right, let's make some negative space art. Here is what you will need. A sheet of white paper, a smaller sheet of colored paper, X-Acto knife or scissors, and remember, X-Acto knives are sharp, and you will cut your fingers, and you'll bleed on your art. Be careful. And one of my favorite things, as you know, you'll also need glue. Another useful tool to have here is a cutting mat. But if you don't have one of those, just use the back of an old notebook that belongs to somebody else. What you want to do here is to cut shapes out of the colored piece of paper and arrange those shapes around the outside into the negative space. You know, thinking about negative space is a fun way to think. When something that isn't there has meaning, that's subversive and fun. Sort of like the punchline of a joke. The negative space can turn unexpectedly and show us a relationship we might not have thought about before. Finding meaning in what isn't there. I remember an old Sesame Street bit where Ernie is looking at a picture of a tree with 4 elephants in the negative spaces. It taught about negative space without ever saying the words negative space. Wow, that really is subversive. And hey, you know what? This is the internet. Let's watch that right now. Here's Ernie and the elephant picture.